Global and regional risks are increasing in the war between Russia and Ukraine. While thousands of people lost their lives in the war that began with the invasion attempt, the fact that the conflict between the two countries may intensify after March and spread to other countries keeps the agenda busy. Both sides are preparing to make their spring moves. While Ukraine is trying to create the necessary infrastructure for the Crimea unit offensive, it successfully blocks the advance of the Russian army. In Donetsk, the Russians are active in the Zaporizhzhia region of Crimea, and 17 warships of the Russian Black Sea Navy are located around the Crimea here. On the other hand, while Russia is making plans to include its ally Belarus in the war, there is a danger that could evolve into a world war. Through Poland and the Baltic countries, Russian armies and armed convoys continue to be deployed to strategic points in Belarus. Against this, the Ukrainian army is on alert on the 1084-kilometer Belarusian border. Belarus has been playing an important role for Russia since the beginning of the Ukraine crisis. We can say that Belarus is being dragged by Russia to open a new front in the war in Ukraine. Russia's main plan is to devote Kiev military elements and attention from counterattacks in the east and south of the country. Russia used Belarus as a springboard for the invasion that began on February 24th. In the attack on Kiev, they sent thousands of fair troops across the border, unlaunched missiles at Ukrainian targets from air bases in Belarus. So indirectly, Belarus was already in the war because it helped Russia. Now Russian President Putin wants to draw the men directly. However, the Great Resistance movement that has turned green in Belarus this week is also disrupting Putin's plans on the military base used by the Russian Air Force. The Russian spy UAV was shot down by Belarusian partisans. While this event created panic in the Kremlin, it was greeted with hope by the people of Ukraine and Bal. Minsk supplies the Russian forces with weapons and ammunition, but to date has not sent any of its 60,000 soldiers, most of them conscripted to war, at least under the Belarusian flag. It is also clear that Lukashenko has resisted direct involvement in the conflict, fearing and backlash from the public and even from the military, which could jeopardize his hold on power. Ukraine is prepared this time. Zelensky has long served with a delegation of international observers on the 1,000-kilometer border between Ukraine and Belarus. On the other hand, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones fly several times a day from Ukrainian positions. Deep in the dense forest on both sides of the border with Belarus, Ukrainian troops are watching the 650-mile border of swamp and woodland for a possible surprise attack from the north. Rapidos' failed offensive on Kiev at the start of the war nearly a year ago. This time, Ukrainians are not taking risks since the summer. They have been strengthening building and widening trenches in the forest and laying mines in the forest before the spring offensive awaited by the ministry authorities. The Ukrainian side is focused on closing the border completely to control the crossings. Ukraine first blew up the border bridges and then mined the roads. Also, this week, Kiev forces blew up the road bridge leading to the Kremlin's staunch ally of defense in the city of Sl. Border cities in northern Ukraine had already been surrounded once before, but the brave inhabitants of Slage swore to keep their homes empty as the Russian inmate is regrouped in Belarus. Slage is a very critical border city for the defense of Kiev. The road that goes directly to Kiev from the Belarusian border passes through this city. For this reason, it is important to cut every precaution taken in the city and every lake and road connecting Belarus, and the brave inhabitants of the city are ready to make every effort to defend their country. Locals fear that Putin's forces will attack like last year. There is a direct danger in the area right now. SL's first bustle took place in March last year, shortly after Putin's invasion began. The city was besieged for 9 days, its electricity and food supply cut off. The mayor of SL was kidnapped, then released as thousands of locals protested in the main. According to the Ukrainian regime on its allies, Russia may be planning another attack from Belarus, which once again put SL tied 25,000 inhabitants on the front line. Belarusian officials described the deployment of troops along the border as strategic deterrence. The country's authoritarian President Alexander Lukashenko insists that he would not send troops to Ukraine. Minsk did not send troops to fight alongside Moscow forces but Lukashenko allowed Russia to use the country which borders Ukraine in the north as a preparation ground for invasion. It also gave Russia full access to air bases, conducted joint exercises, and treated wounded Russian soldiers on its territory. As a result, many Ukrainians perceive Belarusians as passive, if not complicit in Russia's war. As a result, the whole world understood the importance of taking precautions no matter what or whoever, instead of trusting as long as there are possibilities. Accordingly, Ukrainian commanders are cautious, remembering how Russia and Belarus as a launch pad in early 2022, the head of the region's Army Intelligence Unit, during a press tour a few miles from the border this week, stated that they constantly monitor the enemy from the ground and observe the movement of troops. How many soldiers if they are moving and where they are moving. Unlike the East with devastating artillery duels here in the North, there is largely a quadcopter warfare. The Russians are constantly trying to monitor the changing of the guard, trying to find the positions of the Ukrainian army. From time to time, Ukrainian troops detect enemy reconnaissance drones and shoot them against the drone. Or if an enemy drone detects and follows the Ukrainian. At this point, Ukraine is trying to capture him and add it to its stockpiles. They even recently got 4 of their drones. This way, Ukraine says its reconnaissance missions have yet to show any alarming signs of. There is a reinforcement section and the patrol is being strengthened. A group has been formed on the border, Belarus ready to face the enemy with dignity. Ukrainian officials claim that no one knows how Moscow will act in the coming months and that a state of alert should be raised along the border. It is said that fortifications were built to prevent reinfiltration. Whether it is or not, we can say that it is always underlined to be. Armed with machine guns, Ukrainian soldiers stand trenches dug into the forest floor and reinforced with planks 5 feet deep. When they first invaded, there was no Ukrainian weapon or army on the border, but this time they are ready. Belarus, on the other hand, warned in a statement that a significant part of the Ukrainian troops were massed on its border, posing a threat to its own security. It increased security measures on Poland's border with Belarus and Russia's cleaning. Poland began preemptively expanding its security measures on the border with Russia and Belarus. This is part of the defense and deterrent strategy. In addition, the first fortifications have already begun to be built on the border of the and Grad oblasts. As Poland strengthens its borders, it can be helpful to look back to understand the relationship between Poland and Russia. Their relationship has been complex and turbulent throughout history with a legacy of conflict and mistrust dating back centuries. Various factors including regional disagreements, ideological differences, and historical grievances contributed to the shaping of this relationship. One of the most important factors shaping this relationship between Russia and Poland is territorial disputes. Historically, Poland and Russia have fought multiple wars for land with both sides trying to expand their territory and influence. This has resulted in a legacy of border disputes and conflicting territorial claims that continue to fuel tensions and insecurity. As a result, historical troubles also played an important role in shaping the relationship between Russia and Poland. Poland has a long history of being invaded and fragmented by neighboring powers, including Russia, and has often been seen as the victim of aggression and expansionism. This fueled a sense of nationalism and distrust towards Russia, which many Poles saw as a historical enemy. In short, we can say that Poland is one of the countries that think that Russia's occupation of Ukraine will not be limited to this. Poland, which is the 6th largest state in Europe in terms of geography, is bordered by Belarus, Czech Republic, Germany, Lithuania, Russia, Slovakia, and Ukraine, as well as a coastline on the Baltic Sea. This geographical location makes Poland the regional leader amongst post-Soviet countries that perceive a threat from Russia, while at the same time it is a buffer zone. In this sense, Poland continues to be referred to as a turbulent country throughout history due to its geographical location. Therefore, the geopolitical choices that Poland has made and will make have affected and continue to affect the global power struggle. In other words, due to its geopolitical position, Poland has come to the fore after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, because from the first day of the Russian-Ukraine war analyses continue to be made that the conflict will spread to the. In this context, there is a prevailing opinion that the first stop of the said expansion will be Poland. As a matter of fact, it is claimed that Russia's next target will be Poland. Therefore, we can say that the most important effect of the war in Poland was the increase in its importance in European security.